The 2024 NFL regular season just ended, guys, which means it's time to do my official 2024-2025 NFL quarterback rankings. I'm really excited to do this today, but before we get into the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy NFL and NBA content. I'll be pumping out a lot more content in the coming days. I'm going to be putting every quarterback who played meaningful minutes this season into this tier list, which has the following tiers. We've got the All-Pro tier, which is for the best quarterbacks in the league this season. We've got the Pro Bowl tier, which means either they made the Pro Bowl or I think they had a season that deserved to make the Pro Bowl. We got the Good Starter tier, which means, yeah, this guy's a capable starter, can lead your team to the playoffs, depends on his supporting cast. With a half-decent supporting cast, you're probably going to be okay. Next up, we've got the average tier. This tier is for just the mid quarterbacks in the NFL. You got a great supporting cast? This guy's not going to screw it up. He might be good enough to get you to the playoffs. You don't have a good supporting cast? This guy's just going to reflect that. You're probably not going to be very good. You're probably going to have a bunch of guys in this tier. Next up, we've got the bad tier. These guys are going to drag down your team even if you have a bad supporting cast. They might be able to put together a couple of good performances, but on the whole, for the entire season, these guys are just not going to get the job done for you. Probably not going to make the playoffs. Probably going to be a pretty bad team. And finally, we've got the not NFL quality tier. These guys should either retire, be benched. I don't know. These guys are not very good. These guys probably should not start another game in their NFL careers unless a team is truly, truly desperate. The first guy we're going to rank today is Tua Tagovailoa, and this is an interesting one for me because we kind of know what Tua is at this point in his career. He's a good, accurate quarterback who's going to get the ball to his weapons and can play on-time, on-target football. He looks way better than any other quarterback the Dolphins throw in there, and the offense looks night and day different with him in the game. But I think he's no more than an average quarterback at this point in his career. He's pretty limited, and obviously the injury issues are pretty tough to watch for all of us. I honestly hoped he retired this season, but I guess he's going to stick around for some more years. Next up, we have Daniel Jones, and this one's really got to sting for all you Giants fans because you guys chose to pay Daniel Jones instead of Saquon Barkley, and man, this guy looked horrible this season. 8 touchdowns, 7 picks, got benched for Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock. Clearly, this guy goes in the not NFL quality tier. Never going to be a starter in the NFL again. Now, from absolute garbage to maybe the MVP of the entire league, Josh Allen. What a season, man. This guy was just out of this world. 28 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions, another 12 rushing touchdowns. I mean, just insane stuff from Josh Allen this season. Probably the best I've ever seen him play. Led the Bills to the number 2 seed in the AFC. Clearly an all-pro this year. And he did it without a single good receiver. Just give this guy the MVP, man. Deserved. I think we got CJ Stroud next, and man, this guy's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, but I think this year he's just got to go in the average tier, man, because I just expected so much more from CJ Stroud this year. He came into the year with MVP type expectations with a stacked Texans team. And yes, he did have some wide receiver injuries, but he also had some absolute stinkers this year, like the Jets game, the Baltimore game a couple weeks ago. He just didn't play up to his regular standard. He didn't look as mobile as he did maybe last year. Wasn't making as many big plays, missed a lot of big throws. Man, I really just was disappointed with CJ Stroud this year. He still did lead the Texans to the playoffs, but their division sucks, so it's not that big of a deal. Just average for me this year. Who should we do next? Let's just quickly get Bailey Zappe out of the way. Just clearly should not start another game in the NFL. This guy's horrible. Played a game for the Cleveland Browns this week. Looked as bad as DTR, if that's even possible. We really should have a tier below the bottom tier for the Browns quarterbacks. Truly, truly some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen from a team. Let's go ahead and do Joe Flacco next. I think he's like 40 years old now. Came in for Anthony Richardson when he benched himself. And, Joe Flacco is not horrible, but I think it's time for him to go. Threw 7 picks in the 6 games, lost 4 out of his 6 games. He's just not good enough anymore. Had a really successful career, but I think it's time to hang him up, Joe. Let it go. Moving on to Justin Fields. I think this guy has so much potential, but the Steelers' offense just looked so bad with him in. 18 points week 1, 13 points week 2, 20 points in week 3. He went 4-2, but once Russ came in, the offense clicked so much better. He's really inaccurate, can't make his reads. Really effective with his legs. A great runner at the quarterback position, but just probably not good enough to be a starting quarterback. I think he has enough potential to warrant giving him another shot somewhere else, so I'm not quite going to put him in the not NFL quality tier, but definitely in the bad tier. Moving on to the next rookie, we got Drake Maye. And man, I was really impressed with Drake Maye this year. Got dropped into one of the worst situations in the NFL, maybe the worst. Bottom 5 offensive line, worst wide receiver group in the NFL. Kayshon Boutte was his number 1 wide receiver. But he showed off all the arm talent you could possibly show off, and he showed a surprising amount of ability with his legs. I think at one point was leading the league in yards per rush as a quarterback. Looked really good, man. I'm really excited for what he's going to do in the next couple years. He obviously can't go any higher than the average tier because he only won 2 games as a starter, but still, I was very impressed. We got Dak Prescott next, and we don't need to spend a lot of time on Dak Prescott. Only played 8 games this year before a season-ending injury, and we know what Dak Prescott is at this point. He's an average quarterback to better than average, but nothing special. Next up, we got a really interesting one. We got Geno Smith, and this guy obviously revived his career last year, went to Seattle, won the starting job. He's solid. He can make some huge plays, but he's also going to make a lot of mistakes. I really don't think you can win anything with Geno Smith, but with a great supporting cast, he might be able to lead you to the playoffs. Broke my heart this year as a Niners fan, played his best game of the season against us. He's decent. But then again, he threw 15 interceptions, so I really don't know. I think average. Moving on to another NFC West quarterback, we have Kyler Murray, and I love Kyler Murray. He's absolutely electric when he runs the ball and he gets out of the pocket, but I just don't think he's consistent enough. Maybe it's because he's a little bit short for the position, or maybe the scheme isn't very good, but he just doesn't seem to be very consistent. One game, he'll look like the best quarterback in the league, making plays all over the place, and the next game, he just looks really inaccurate, misses a lot of balls, makes a lot of bad decisions. Just average, I think. Next up, we have Anthony Richardson, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league without question, probably the most athletic quarterback in the league, just a monster, but I just don't think he's good enough to be a quarterback in the NFL. He only threw 8 touchdown passes this year, 12 interceptions, just looks like he's incapable of making the right reads and throwing the ball on time, on target. And to add on to all that, he quit on his team this season. Clearly not the leader the Colts need at this point. Colts are a mess. Clearly he's not the guy for the job, so I think it's time to move on. Maybe, just maybe, someone gives you a 3rd or a 4th rounder for him this offseason. I think if they do, you got to take it and just reset. Bo Nix. Bo Nix surprised me, man. He's good. He's way better than I thought he was going to be. He, coming out of college, I thought probably the worst rookie in this class, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should have known he was going to be good given that he had so much experience in college. But realistically, he's just way more athletic than I thought. He looks really good running the ball. He looks really poised in the pocket. And Sean Payton seems to love the guy. I think he just makes the right play most of the time. He had one really bad stretch of 5 interceptions in 2 games, but still 29 touchdowns, 12 picks on the season. Just a phenomenal rookie year. I think he's just a good starter now. Next up, we got my guy, Brock Purdy, quarterback of my 49ers, of course. And I don't think my opinion of Brock Purdy has really changed this year. I think last year I thought he was maybe above average, but probably still an average quarterback. And this year we got to see him without all the weapons, and it was kind of more of the same. When the plays are on script, he looks really good. He's more athletic than most people thought. He's solid, but there's still way too many moments where he's back there and you just don't know what to expect. He makes a lot of boneheaded decisions late in games, throws a lot of interceptions still. I don't really know, man. We got a tough decision coming up this offseason, whether to pay him or how much to pay him. I'm not too sure, man. I think just average. Next up, we have Bryce Young, and man, was I happy to see Bryce Young come back and play well this year. Last 3 games of the season, no interceptions, passer rating of 107, 100, 123. Just looked a lot more like the guy we saw at Alabama who won the Heisman. Made some special plays with his legs. Improvisation looked way better. Receivers started to make some plays for him. They even won a couple games. I think at this point, looks like another promising young quarterback. Probably just average. But I think he showed a lot of guts to hang in there after he got benched and come back and really show what he can do. Now, this one's really tough. We got Russell Wilson up next. I think Russell Wilson is solid. He was decent this year. Didn't turn the ball over very much. Only 5 interceptions in 11 games. The Steelers' offense obviously looked a lot better with him in versus Justin Fields. He had a nice connection with George Pickens for a while, but by the end of the season, that offense just looked atrocious. And that tends to happen with the Steelers by the end of the year. They finish really slow. But I think at this point in his career, Russell Wilson's just going to reflect what he's got around him. Going to be dependable, not make a lot of mistakes, but also I think is pretty limited at this point. The less time we spend on this next guy, the better. Just get him out the league, man. I think the Browns are going to cut him after this season, which I really hope they do. Good riddance, Deshaun Watson. We got another guy who's probably not going to be a starter anymore. Will Levis, just not very good. Makes a lot of plays that you've never seen in your life before, but in the worst way possible. Seems to just make the worst decision at the worst time. Got some talent there, but I just don't see it anymore. And on that note, welcome to Tennessee, Cam Ward. We got Justin Herbert up next, and I think we all knew this guy was supremely talented, but this year he kind of just put it all together in his first year under Jim Harbaugh. 23 touchdowns, a league low, only 3 interceptions this year, and he looked absolutely incredible. Led the Chargers to an 11-6 record, took them to the playoffs. Hopefully he's going to win his first playoff game this year. Sky's the limit for Justin Herbert now, man. And he's going to be our first guy in the Pro Bowl tier. Absolutely well-deserved. Let's quickly get Derek Carr out the way because I don't really want to talk about him anymore. He's one of the most boring quarterbacks in the league. You know if Derek Carr's your quarterback, your team's not going anywhere. I think at this point in his career, he's just really bad. Maybe he's serviceable somewhere, but clearly not the guy. This next one's an absolute no-brainer. Lamar Jackson could have been the MVP in any other year. Maybe the Ravens just didn't win enough games, but as an individual, he looked the best he's ever looked. I mean, 41 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions, just unreal. And on the eye test as well, I think this is clearly the highest level he's ever played. Still looks absolutely electric as a runner, and now seems more confident than ever passing the ball as well. Seems to be able to make every throw necessary, just spreading the ball around to all his guys. Phenomenal season from Lamar Jackson. Next up, we got Aaron Rodgers. Obviously one of the best quarterbacks of all time, but I think this year was a little disappointing for Aaron Rodgers, and I think everyone can kind of agree on that. The Jets only won 4 games. Absolutely miserable season for them. He kind of looked like he didn't want to be out there at times. Seemed to be avoiding hits. Didn't look very mobile. Kind of hit and miss the whole season. He had some pretty solid performances. You can tell the arm is still live. He can still make all the throws. And he's clearly still thinking the game at the same level, but just physically looks like a shell of his former self. I think at this point, he can't be considered a good quarterback, and no team should be looking to have him as their plan for the future. Kirk Cousins is kind of the same story as Aaron Rodgers. Also coming off that Achilles, didn't know what he was going to look like this year, but clearly didn't look like he still has it physically. Got benched at the end of the season for Michael Penix, who came in and immediately made the offense look a little better. I think Kirk Cousins is washed at this point. Maybe another year removed from the Achilles, he'll look a little better, but clearly on a horrible contract. I don't know who's going to want him in the offseason. I think we all expected a little more out of Caleb Williams coming into the year. We thought he was going to be in a phenomenal situation with the Chicago Bears. A lot of people had really high expectations for both him and the team, but I think the situation ended up being a lot worse than we all thought. Some of the worst coaching I've ever seen. Horrible offensive line play. Of course, Caleb has to be better at getting the ball out on time. He's holding it too long, kind of walking into a lot of sacks. But you still saw flashes of the special player we saw in college. He makes some throws that very few other guys in the league can make. And I thought the second half of the season, he did look pretty good. I think they kind of coached the turnovers out of him, but they also at the same time coached some of the special plays out of him. But I think it's hard to say you would take more than 15 guys in the league over Caleb Williams at this point. I think next year we're looking for way better things from him. I think he's still going to be a special player in this league. This next one's really easy. I really don't want to see Tommy DeVito or his ridiculous agent anymore. I think the gimmick's up. He looks really bad. Doesn't look like a starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know where he goes from here. Another pretty easy one, Aiden O'Connell. I don't think he's horrible. I think he's probably a serviceable backup. He's kind of solid, doesn't make too many mistakes. But realistically, the Raiders are trying to draft a quarterback. I think his time as a starter is done. He's not particularly good at anything. So he's bottom tier for me, no question. We got Patrick Mahomes up next. I think we can all agree Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. He did have a pretty slow start to the season this year, but by the end of the season, his numbers still look pretty good. Almost 4,000 passing yards, 26 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and the second half of the season, you can't really argue that he was anything other than very good. Still the best fourth quarter quarterback in the league, still the best in clutch time. And of course, his team was 15-1 when he played. I think clearly he deserved to be in the Pro Bowl. Who goes out? I don't really know, but he clearly had that caliber of a season. Up next is Jalen Hurts, and it was kind of a confusing year for Jalen Hurts this year because, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles added Saquon Barkley and kind of leaned on him the whole season. Jalen Hurts was asked to do less than he ever has before, but with that, he also threw only 5 picks this year, kind of fixed his turnover problem, and of course still had his 14 rushing touchdowns. I think Jalen Hurts looked good this year, looked decent throwing the ball, and I think the Eagles are very dangerous in the playoffs. Easy, good starter tier for me. Man, I think it's an absolute travesty that we're not going to see Joe Burrow in the playoffs this year. I think he actually probably played the best out of all the quarterbacks this season from an individual perspective. Almost 5,000 passing yards, 43 touchdowns. Joe Burrow was absolutely dealing this year, and if it wasn't for his defense choking every game, I think the Bengals would have been a really dangerous team in the playoffs, but it's just a shame we don't get to see him. He's clearly in the all-pro tier this season. I think he might have even had an argument to be the best quarterback in the league this year. I guess we'll see what he can do next year. Next up, we have Baker Mayfield, who absolutely dealt this season. Led the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to another division title, 4,500 passing yards, 41 passing touchdowns. He was slinging it. 16 interceptions just come with the territory, but Baker Mayfield is one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch in the NFL these days. I think he's obviously a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and I think he was clearly better than everyone below him on this tier list. Just an awesome year for Baker. What a year this was for Sam Darnold as well. I don't know if anybody saw this coming, but I think until the Lions game this week, he had to be in the MVP conversation. 4,300 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 102 passer rating. Obviously, he had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw the ball to, but the Vikings were awesome to watch this year, and Sam Darnold was a big reason why. I don't think he's as good as the other guys on the same tier as him, but I think based on what he did this year, you got to give him the credit and put him in the Pro Bowl tier. I think we should go ahead and talk about Matt Stafford next. I think we all know Matt Stafford is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league, and I think we all trust him a lot come playoff time. But this was maybe more of a pedestrian year for Stafford numbers-wise. He was still really good after a slow start. The Rams were awesome again this year, 10-6, won the division, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions for Stafford. I think he can go no lower than the good starter tier. I think we can all agree Jayden Daniels had one of the best rookie quarterback years we've ever seen. Jayden Daniels was absolutely awesome this year. 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Looked awesome throwing the ball. Obviously electric with his legs. Made clutch throw after clutch throw. Game-winning drive after game-winning drive. Led the Commanders to the playoffs in his first season. What more can you say about Jayden Daniels this year, man? Clear Rookie of the Year. And a well-deserved addition to the Pro Bowl tier. Jared Goff's another easy one for me. I think Jared Goff was just so solid this year and clearly a Pro Bowl level quarterback in the NFC. Just did everything Dan Campbell asked him to do for the Lions offense. He obviously had that insane stretch at the start of the year where the Lions were blowing everyone out and he was throwing for 85% completion percentage every game, setting records. He did have that one iffy game where he threw 5 interceptions and the Lions still won. So there is still that little bit of doubt with Jared Goff, but I think Jared Goff is clearly one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the league and well deserved to be in the Pro Bowl tier. Jordan Love's kind of an interesting one for me this year. I think if you went off the stats, it's kind of a pedestrian year. only 25 touchdowns to 11 interceptions, so maybe you could argue he goes in the average tier. But for me, the eye test just tells you he's got to be in the good starter tier. I think we all know he's a little better than all the guys below him on this tier list, and the team is just too good to have him in that tier. I think Jordan Love's got to be a good starter. Let me know if you guys disagree in the comments, but I think that seems pretty fair to me. We're really getting towards the end here, so I think I'll keep it quick on our next guy, Trevor Lawrence. I think at this point in his career, Trevor Lawrence might be the most mid quarterback in the league. The Jaguars were an absolute dumpster fire this year when he played. 2-8 record, 11 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but clearly a very talented quarterback. Athletic, can make all the throws you need. I think he's got to be average. I don't think you can call him bad at this point, but I'm not sure you can call him good either, which is a huge disappointment given Trevor Lawrence's expectations coming into his NFL career. Last but not least, guys, we have Michael Penix, who played the last 2 games of the season for the Falcons. He looked pretty lively, made some pretty impressive plays, but followed all of them up with some equally head-scratching plays, missed a lot of open guys, made some questionable decisions, but I think you saw some flashes. Unfortunately, he's got to be in the bad tier for now until we see more. That's going to do it for this video today, guys. We saw some insane quarterback play this season, and we saw some equally horrendous quarterback play, but I really enjoyed this NFL season. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys would change. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel for future videos, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.